What up YouTube? Back with another video, and the subject of today's video will be my perspective on the gender war, or the battle of the sexes, whatever you want to call it. So I suppose may as well start from the beginning. You know, I was born in 1987, and I like to think, you know, growing up in the 90s, we pretty much had equality in the 90s, to be honest, more or less. At least if you're looking at it from the perspective of a woman. Or I wouldn't say we did from the perspective of a man. Growing up, I absolutely did not like the unfair treatment that men received from women. And even as a child, I noticed this. You know, and it's an example that the feminists say getting used, because it's like they think we want to abuse women, but it's the one everybody understands. And so at the very most toxic side of it, you would have girls hitting boys when I'm growing up, and boys being taught you don't hit girls. And then obviously growing up, you're like, but we're meant to be equal, we're meant to be the same, we're meant to have the same rights. How come they can hit me, and if I retaliate, I'm in the wrong? And then, you know, there's other things like preferential treatment. I remember being at school, our form teacher would always let the girls leave the room first before the boys. And with me becoming more traditional now, being a bit older, I probably wouldn't care so much. But growing up in that environment, it does get up your nose, being a young lad. So society was already tilted to the benefit of women against men. And I would still argue it is. You know, feminists like to pretend that they're the downtrodden ones, but they're not. Women are protected, mollycoddled. They have their own laws. You know, even in America, I think they have the Violence Against Women Act, and something similar in the Philippines as well. So women definitely have an easier life than men. And if you don't agree with that, you're just a retard, to be honest. You know, and my mum was a socialist, is a socialist, I suppose. You know, she was in favour of feminism, and, you know, she did raise me to respect women, but also not to tolerate their bullshit, because my mum growing up was still like a tomboy. She used to prefer hanging around with men. Even to this day, she prefers working with men, because women are catty and bitchy, whereas men will just say it to your face. Like, if you were in the workplace and a man doesn't like you, they'll just tell you to your face, or they'll just ignore you. There's none of this like pretending to like you and then talking about you behind your back. And I know some of you are going to say, I know men like that. And yeah, of course, there will be some men that are like that. But we're talking about averages here. We're talking about the average. Men are just not like that. And so she did instill in me to not tolerate bullshit from women, because she knows what they're like. She knows they're manipulative, etc. But she was still a feminist. She still thinks women should have equal rights to men, you know, and obviously that did rub off on me. And then I remember going to college as I get older, and at this time I suppose I'm mainly online. I'm debating people on the prohibition of drugs. Being a sort of weed smoker at the time, I would end up debating usually religious people on a page called I Hate Drugs. And this will become relevant in a minute. And as I'm at college, I take subjects like British politics, globalization, culture studies, and then other IT subjects like website design, multimedia offering, etc., photography. And then, but I noticed there's lots of sort of modules and classes like women in the workplace, women so-and-so, women so-and-so, lots of these like modules, all essentially feminist modules. But I never took any of them anyway. I always skipped out on those, took the more hard politics kinds, not the social science malarkey kind of stuff. So we're already on my radar. And then while I'm at university, there is an event, and we get an email about it. And there's I don't know, it's like an event to get women into work or something, and men can only go if they are accompanied by a woman. So I emailed the university, I'm like, what's that about? That's sexist. You are being sexist towards men. And then the woman who was running it had what is now just normal, like an overreaction because a man is trying to enforce his will on her. But you're being hypocrites, and this is the thing that I'd always sort of half noticed, but then it's when I started engaging with it more, I noticed that feminists, and just socialists in general and communists, do not apply their rules to everybody. They have a system that they apply. They have their own hierarchy. You know, white men are always at the bottom. And then, I mean, there was a good period of time actually where you would get white women and black men arguing about who's more oppressed actually. That was always fun to watch, those sort of threads. Obviously not being a black man or a white woman, but you know, I think that kind of ended after George Floyd died. And it seems like that then white women went boop, just above the white men. And I then remember searching a page, but you know, this is back in like 2009 maybe. I come across a page called I Hate Men. So obviously I joined this group and I start like debating the women in there, realizing that they're essentially idiots and, you know, moron feminists that don't really live by the rules that they think that the rest of us should live by. And then I look for one called I Hate Women, and there's none. But I Hate Men, you know, like reams of them called I Hate Men. And people would say to me, why don't you create one called I Hate Women to be fair? And I'm like, because I don't hate women. Sort of the same with the maybe white pride one. You know, there'd be groups called Proud to be Black, Black Pride. No white versions though. And again, I'm not exactly going to go create one. So it's not exactly, I mean, I would like to say I'm not proud of my race, but I don't know actually. 2025, with how many attacks I've had from like sort of the ex-Spanish colonies and Indians, certain African countries, I don't know, it has started to make me retreat into my identity and think, no, we are better than you. You're speaking my language. If you were better than us, I'd be speaking your language, not the other way around. But anyway, I digress. I noticed that there were not the same sort of groups taking shots at women. And of course now, obviously, it's all changed now in 2025. I'm explaining like my sort of interaction with the gender war. And, you know, in this time as well, I've had many girlfriends, I suppose. By the time it's 2009, probably on my third going into my fourth long-term relationship. Now, I've had about 6 long-term relationships, dated more women than that, obviously. But the 6 that I would say have been proper girlfriends. We've spent a lot of time together, etc. And so, you know, I think it was obvious to anybody that I didn't hate women, otherwise I wouldn't have these relationships for such long periods of time. Especially seeing as like, at least relationship 3 and 4 were definitely leaning into the sort of feminist. And this is about the time I am, you know, between 3 and 4, they are feminists. But can I start seeing they're going one way and I'm going another in both instances. I remember the third girlfriend, I was finding her attractive at a moment, you know, as we do with men, trying to escalate it to romantic time. And she's like, oh, you're objectifying me. And then at this time, I suppose I've heard of objectification, but I've never really looked into it or took it serious. I'm so confused. I'm like, objectifying you? I'm like, I'm meant to. You're my girlfriend. I'm meant to find you attractive. I'm meant to objectify you. Not to just view you only as an object, but there is objectification within attraction. Attraction starts with appearance. You are first attracted to somebody on the outside, and only then do you open up, both women and men, only then do you open up to everything else, like personality and all the other things. So objectification is perfectly normal. But either way, I'm starting to see that even though I am sort of like left-wing at this point, I am proto-woke, I suppose. That word wasn't, the words social justice warrior and woke weren't being used at the moment. But I'm starting to notice that I don't really get along so much with the leftists, or especially if they're further far left. I remember arguing with an anarchist about the police and thinking, you're just an idiot. What are you going to do with no police? So I already start seeing the fracture in me and in society, and mainly with feminists. So, you know, kind of debating some left-wing people, a lot of right-wing people at that time, you know, your EDL types, BNP types, debating them as well. And I really start to dislike the fact that women seem to have this monopoly, and that I'm like an odd one out. I'm one of the few men that is really interacting with the feminists, debating them and trying to prove them wrong. Most people are looking at me, it's like, why are you wasting your time? Who cares about these people? Nobody's listening to them. But unbeknownst to these people, like, people are listening to them. They were failing in some instances, like when they tried to ban men from urinating, stood up in Germany. And it's so long ago now, I can't remember some of the other events. But they were, oh yeah, I suppose it was like Nuts magazine, Zoo, I think it was like Maxim FHM. They were like, oh, wait, poof, 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 in a series of events. But for some reason, men are just not bothered. I suppose, you know, in society, men are not meant to get emotional and react to things like that. It's just meant to get along with it, get up, go to work, get your roofing done, lay your tarmac, get your deliveries done, whatever your job is. You know, consume product, wait for next product. But already I'm starting to move away from that. And, you know, I would say, even though I didn't know about it at the time, it was very similar to Sargon of Akkad. I mean, obviously 2009, 2010 time. Don't know who Sargon is. I don't know if he'd even started recording videos then. Gamergate is still 4 years away. So then, yeah, up until 2014, I am just banging my head against the wall, posting things to my Facebook. I don't go on Twitter because I know that that is a cesspool of feminists. I remember one of my friends getting, one of my friend's brothers did a post about women online, and then for like a week straight, we were just getting tweets, like more and more and more. Just, he'd show his phone, there was just like tweets going up. So I'm like, what the fuck going on there? That's like frying pan to fire. At least on Facebook, I'm able to manage them, but if I go on Twitter, I'm just going to be swamped. Obviously, it's a lot different now on Twitter. Thankfully, Elon has overall improved the system. And it is still at this point annoying me that there's this asymmetry within the gender battle. You know, I suppose a lot of men are happy with their lives. They have wives, children, mortgages, they go on holiday every year, etc. But I am the principle of, you know, I suppose a liberal approach of equality. I am increasingly annoyed that I'm not getting the same treatment as I'm meant to show other people. But the feminists, again, have a monopoly on that sort of, on that subject. And time would move forward. Unfortunately, something bad happened in my life at the time of Gamergate happening, so I wasn't as involved instantly. So I had like sort of trauma, I suppose. But then I do join in eventually into the great meme war of 2014 to 2015. Or was it 2015 to 16? Get a bit confused. So yeah, I'm in there now, and then I'm realizing now that at last a lot of men have woke up to what's happening in society with feminism, communism. But still, most people are asleep. It's like the tech savvy bros, you know, Elon Musk's, people like that, people who are tech orientated. They start noticing the Gamergate stuff and that the feminists have encroached. And I am sort of relieved, but still annoyed that most men are sort of still poo-pooing it, don't realise what's coming down the line. Obviously now I'm all vindicated, I'm all like, I told you this. You know, I would talk to people, I'd be saying, it's a part of the culture war, that's why they're doing this, and people would be like, what culture war? And I'd be extremely aggravated, going, what do you mean, what culture war? It's like, to me, it was obvious, but maybe because I was interacting with it. That is why it seemed obvious. But still, most relationship talk, this is like going back to the gender war part of it, it's all related. The relationship space and everything is still just infested with women complaining about men. No men really engage about relationship talk. Men, you know, men seek sex, women seek relationships, so it was always, I suppose, normal that women would be more concerned about relationships, men more concerned about sex, and that is how it broadly transpires. When two people are forming a relationship, the man chases sex, the woman chases a relationship. And I've always told people in the past, women, that you do not, or men anyway, I suppose, men do not surrender the label of relationship until sex has occurred. And likewise, once sex has occurred, a woman should not keep pumping attention into that man unless he has given her the title of relationship. Like, they should be happening at the exact same time. Sex, relationship, boom. You know, obviously, there's like hookup culture now. That wasn't so much a thing at the time, or there wasn't a term for it. But yeah, so we get to that point, and we move further forward to 2016, Brexit, Trump, first term, and a lot of people are waking up now. Maybe not, men haven't quite got their acts together, but a lot of men are starting to think, what is going off here? What's happening? What's all this malarkey about? And I would say it wasn't until 2020 that society as a whole woke up and realised it was happening. You know, and it took till now for everybody to push back on wokeism and essentially defeat it. It's not dead, it's just defeated. And in that time now, you've obviously now seen the fact that we have channels like Fresh and Fit, the Whatever podcast, you know, and then there's the old Manosphere stuff. I mean, I was aware of the Manosphere anyway. I'd interacted with men going their own way types. I was in like MRA groups. But this is all like niche underground. Not so much now, obviously. Very mainstream now. But you know, when I'm interacting with the men going their own way types and the MRAs, this is like back in 2009 again. But certainly by 2020, men have got their act together and starting to push back, which is where you get the rise of Fresh and Fit, the Whatever podcast, Manosphere creators such as Tribe of Men, Levi Nix, is it? I think his name. Channels like that. And then all of a sudden women are all like super pissed about it, that men are starting to push back. And that is exactly what it is. Men had not had a voice in regard to relationships prior to that. And at long last, men had found it. But the issue was that some of them were going a bit overboard. I don't think Brian Atlas at Whatever podcast, I don't think he takes it too far. I think it's a bit weird when he's insisting that women should bow, but he's getting that from the Japanese culture. You know, a Japanese woman, not all of them, but it's now not out of the realm of possibility that a Japanese girlfriend will give you a little bow when you come in the door. So it's maybe something I don't think Brian needs to push too much, but certainly with Andrew Tate and Myron Gaines, they are pushing something too far the opposite direction, where they like want harems or harems of women, and that men should fuck around, women should be monogamous. I'm a bit like, I don't really agree with those points, but I agree with some of the other points. You know, men lead. I do think that is true. Successful relationships will have a male leader most often. Can't have two leaders. No, there's not two captains of a ship. There's not two captains of a football team. There's not two generals in the army. Or maybe I'm wrong about the army example, because I suppose sometimes you do have top brass that might double up. I don't know. Let me know if I'm wrong about that one. Never been in the military. I've applied before, but yeah. So then I'm relieved that men now have a voice, but women now to this day just considering it that you're an incel, you hate women, yada 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 yada. When it's not the case. Men were trying to resolve the relationship issues that we had in society by pushing back on the toxic femininity that had infested relationships. But again, it's not perfect, obviously, because you have Andrew Tate, Myron Gaines, and they are definitely taking things a bit far. So we are now at a point where when men and women are just deadlocked, like sort of deadlocked. I mean, men, obviously, we have an option. We can go to Asia, Africa, South America, get a more traditional woman that's more submissive and, soft, not as argumentative, not as quarrelsome. And before anybody gets upset, when I say submissive, I'm not talking about being a slave. I'm just talking about not being quarrelsome, doing the best thing for the relationship. That the woman's priority is the relationship, not a career. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about being submissive. But women, instead of listening to men, because that is what could have happened when the red pill stuff, the manosphere stuff became popular, is women could have took this on board and internalized it, learned from it, and we could have started to resolve some of the issues in the dating market. But nope, because these women are quarrelsome, combative, and masculine, they had to fight back, even when men are completely right in many of these instances. So, yeah, we just got deadlocked. And now, people like me are sort of like, I don't know, I won't say seen as wise, but, we're seen as being like, I don't know, almost prophetic. Like that we saw this coming, we're trying to warn people. So, I mean, I will never back down from this, because it's ever been since a little boy that I've noticed that that girls had there was an asymmetry where women had unequal power over men, and still do, really. But men are now educated to be able to sift through the crap women and find a woman that is more suitable to them. But obviously it's a version, I suppose. Prevention is cheaper than the cure, but at some point we do need to cure these issues in society where people can have relationships without being combative and negative for both parties involved. You only have to look at like when some of these streamers break up, they try and take each other out. He said this to me, blah 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 blah. Instead of just breaking up and just going their separate ways and just accepting that the relationship is over and being mature about it, like I think I've done with pretty much all my exes. A lot of people now have to like be the victim and blame the other person. They were innocent, it's all the other person's fault, which is incorrect. In every breakup, there's two people and both are at fault. In every breakup. So, even if one person cheats, the other person is still at fault anyway, because the relationship got to a point where they're cheated. The other person who cheated is definitely at fault, more at fault. It's just that the other party is not innocent. Every time a relationship breaks down, both are at fault. So, yeah, I mean, I'm probably missing things out, but that's broadly why I have the stance that I do. I don't see why I should tolerate a suboptimal girlfriend, and I don't want to smack talk my ex-girlfriends. Pretty much, they're all good people, I suppose. But, in those past relationships, I tried doing the 50-50, where both the same, nobody's the leader, and, this failed every time. So why would I then commit to a strategy which was going to lose again, which would be the equality 50-50 route? And now we have this thing in society where women seem to want men to pay, be gentlemen. Oh, there's a loud car coming, man. Sorry about this. Yeah, so women want men to pay, be chivalrous, be gentlemen, but they don't want to do the feminine stuff. And it's a bit nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And they seem to want to paint it the opposite direction. I've seen posts where men really want a woman to pay 50-50 and still be submissive. And I'm like, what? No man has ever said that. That is the exact inversion of reality. And I keep seeing these posts. I saw a post where it was like, single women living happily, running off, and like a man chasing her down, and men who won't commit to a relationship. And I'm like, it's the exact opposite way around. Women again are confused and flipping what's happening in society. Just like with the men going their own way thing. Women are trying to say that they've left dating. It was men that left dating. It was men that rejected how dating operated and decided they were going to leave and just not date anybody. People like me, I'm not dating anybody now, I'm not messaging anybody now. I'm completely at peace. I probably will again in the future. But at the moment, I would broadly fit into the men going their own way category, even if I think they are a bit cringe sometimes, the men going their own way types. But everybody's cringe, you know. Feminists are cringe, the manosphere is a bit cringe. You know, Myron Gaines and Andrew Tate, when they're saying just fuck around and you don't need to commit, that they need to commit to you, that's cringe, you know. And yeah, I'm firmly on this track, and I know I'll succeed as well. I know everything will be fine. I suppose my issue is being able to get to the women that are more traditional, but things will be resolved in time. I'm going to leave this one here anyway now for the moment. If you want to see more videos like this, or especially on British politics, then give me a subscribe, like the video, share it out to your friends, and if you've got an angry feminist friend, make sure you send it them so they can leave me angry comments and then I can ridicule them. That'll be nice and fun. I'll see you in the next one. Toodaloo.